Hey, what up, Long Beach? Welcome back to the only place in Long Beach to talk Long Beach sports. It's Long Beach Sports Talk.
I get it. I see what we did there. And actually, that's true. If you're in a barbershop, not allowed to talk sports, only on this show.
Only right here, this show presented by the Press Telegram and the Gazette newspapers, brought to you by Naples Rib Company. And like Robert Frost, it's three men and a baby who just can't get too much winter in the winter. Basketball, soccer, water polo, wrestling, it's all happening right now, and we're going to be talking about it on this show like we do every week. I am co-sports editor JJ Fiddler, to my right.
Co-sports editor Mike Gardabasio, holding Vincent the sports baby, or as he was greeted yesterday on the Long Beach Poly campus, Gazette's baby.
Nice.
And to our right,
Take that. Tyler Hendrickson, I knew I was the man by the age of 6. Please blow up our Twitter mentions. Get at us, PT Gazette Sports on Twitter. Send us a question, send us a comment, let us know how awesome we are. Take photos of us while we're working, Miggy. Appreciate it.
yeah, we always love to see that. That cracks me up to no end. I think I'm going to start putting those photos of me filming at the end of my videos from now on. We're also announcing, by the way, the reintroduction of the Ask Doc Dossman column, so go ahead and contact us on Twitter if you're interested in submitting questions for that. Any questions related to sports, injuries, physical therapy, training, anything you want. Doc is our guy, Olympic-level trainer. He's worked with a lot of Olympic athletes, so a nice resource for you to be able to get to.
A great opportunity for the city to get their questions answered by Doc Dossman.
Yes.
Don't take that lightly.
No, for sure.
On this episode of Long Beach Sports Talk, we're going to be talking about some more league boys soccer and how it's just full of more parity than NFL football. We're also going to be talking about some local boys basketball and the runs that they go on, mentioning a Billie Jean King feature that's been in the Press Telegram written by our own Mike Gardabasio. We also will do a baby reenactment and pay respects to a phenomenal GFOP. All on this episode of Long Beach Sports Talk. Stick with us.
You know, one thing I've been noticing is how pure and entertaining boys soccer is here in the Moore League. And really from top to bottom, it's the most balanced and exciting sport that we cover because no matter who's playing who and where, you're bound to get some action and to get an entertaining game. And you don't normally see that in high school sports leagues.
It makes me disappointed that they play all the games at 3 o'clock at the same time. Yeah. They do that with all levels of soccer, really. But that means we're always going to miss one. And more often than not, every week, we miss a really good one.
Well, and just, you think about all the sports. I mean, we've got a lot of great talent in this city, and, you know, you got great sports and everything, but rarely do you have, and you know, boys basketball is sort of like this, too, but rarely do you have, when the league champion plays the last place team, that it would ever be a result other than a blowout. But in soccer, sometimes that last place team earns a draw or a very, you know, competitive 1-0 loss. And so part of that is because that's how soccer is.
Well, part of that is that Compton is good. Compton's good at boys basketball. Compton's good at boys soccer. When Compton's involved, the league is better, just overall.
Oh, no doubt. No doubt. And, you know, they bring a lot of talent and, you know, and resiliency we've seen. And so even when they're playing a team, you know, like Milliken that's more highly ranked and everything, they still compete and stay in these matches. And it's a shame that we don't have college soccer at Long Beach State because there would be so much potential there and so much great talent to kind of continue these rivalries and keep this talent in the city because we're not, the Moore League isn't just competitive just because it's similar to itself. I mean, you've seen how much success Milliken has in the playoffs. So obviously these teams are good. It's just they're all pretty good and competitive, and it's so entertaining to follow the season because you never know when a result's going to happen. No one was expecting Jordan, to go out there and beat Cabrillo.
No one expected Wilson to go tie Milliken, but we get the best of the best on Friday afternoon, 3 o'clock at Milliken. It's El Clasico. Milliken and Cabrillo, the game that's decided the Moore League for as long as we can remember.
The Moore League Super Clasico, and I can't wait for it. I'm really excited. But these teams, there's no guarantee that they're going to hold their own going into that game because you still have some tough tests coming up Wednesday. So we'll see. You're listening to this after those results. But either way, no matter what has happened, you always know Milliken Cabrillo is going to be very entertaining, and I can't wait to see it. It's going to be Friday, 3 p.m. at Milliken, and it's going to just be a heck of a matchup. And it's the crown jewel of what is always an entertaining boys soccer schedule the whole way through because you can't take any days off. There's no day you look at where it's like, oh, well, those will be easy, blowout results, all three of them. There's always going to be something.
Always something. Before you go to that game on Friday, get to GazetteSports.com. I put together the best 5 Milliken Cabrillo boys soccer games of the last 5 years. Some great memories and some incredible comebacks where the class never leaves. You know, these are hard-fought, emotional games, but they're also some of the highest quality games that we see all year in any sport, really.
I wrote a feature about Billie Jean King, obviously one of Long Beach's greatest ever athletes, who just recently was named to the United States Olympic delegation to go in place of President Barack Obama. Very cool. Got a chance to interview her, actually. That was kind of a bucket list check off for me. I mean, it's one of my greatest. Obviously, growing up in Long Beach, Billie Jean King is that's about as good an interview as you could ever get. Actually got my interview bumped by the State Department.
That happens.
You know, it was a first for me, but I took it in stride. I actually told a publicist, I was like, Chip, you're just going to bump me for the State Department. You're just going to, okay, no, fine. That's totally fine.
I see where I stand.
Yeah, I guess I'm less important than the United States State Department.
No,
fine.
I can't promise to be nice to Billie Jean King now.
The funny thing to me was this, so I talked to her right after she got off the phone with the State Department, and really, all she wanted to do was talk about Poly at Long Beach. So she's a Poly alumni. She just wanted to be caught up on everything. I don't know if you guys follow on Twitter. She actually tweeted about the girls' basketball team being ranked #1 in the country by USA Today. She still follows stuff, but since she hasn't really been back in Southern California particularly frequently, she's sort of out of the loop. So it was really funny because it's what we do with everyone who reads our stuff. You moved out of the area, here's a video that shows you how the Poly football team's doing. She remembered watching Dee Andrews in the late 50s Poly CIF championship teams winning football games, and then she remembered waking up early the next morning to go compete in amateur tennis tournaments, which ended up working out okay for her. So check that story out. The story is sort of about her preparations for the Olympics and what that means to her. And then this weekend on the cover of the sports section for the Saturday Press Telegram will be a story about Billie Jean King's Long Beach roots, and get into that a little bit more because I think that's really interesting.
As we said, the winter schedule is stacked on top of itself. We're covering multiple games every day. Sometimes they run together. Sometimes they run together just because they run together.
I get it.
Lakewood and Compton, Moore League boys basketball. A 25-0 run for the Compton Tar Babes. It was sparked, if you want to call it that, for a bang out from Isaiah Sweeney, and the game had started kind of sloppy, but once that dunk happened, the Compton Tar Babes really woke up and then just ran their way to victory. A few days later, we see Long Beach State have a 30-0 run against UC Davis to bounce back from a loss and get their winning streak started yet again at home in the Big West. So I see a 25-0 run. A few days later, a 30-0 run. I don't think I've seen any runs that large at any point in this career, let alone them being in the same week.
It was weird. Now, you would expect it from Compton because, the high school level, you have more discrepancy, and certainly they've got spurt ability, let's call it.
And free throw percentages in high school are usually pretty abysmal, which, is obviously, that's usually what's going to break that up, even if a team can't score, is someone will hit a free throw.
So the Long Beach State one by far more impressive.
No doubt. And here's the thing. It was the start of the second half. It wasn't in the middle. It started the second half on a 30-0 run. So, this is a true story. I was at the Sacramento airport, the crown jewel of the West Coast.
Lucky you.
So I look at my phone on Game Tracker, and I see the second half score, and right when I looked, it said 30 for Long Beach State and 0 for UC Davis. So in my mind, I'm like,
freaking ESPN app.
No. It was the score app. So I was like, the app's messing up. I don't know what the score is, because obviously that they just haven't added Davis' score. So I was like, let me take to Twitter. And then Twitter was abuzz with oh my God, can you believe this run? And then I was like, is this real? So seeing that 30-0 on a basketball second half scoreline is nuts.
We always talk about how basketball is a game of runs, and the lower the level you get, the more important those runs are. We've seen high school teams go on 7-0 runs that decide games, let alone a 25-0 run. And to have Long Beach State do it 30-0, you've got a guy like Dan Munson who's been surrounded by basketball his entire life after the games shaking his head like, well, I've never seen that. You know it's something when Dan Munson's shaking his head in disbelief.
Well, I was going to say, we always say it's a game of runs. We don't usually say the entire game is one run, which is what that Long Beach State thing felt like. You're just waiting for them to score. And, I mean, when the free throws didn't go down, it was like...
it was embarrassing for Davis at points.
Well, and listen, Long Beach was trailing by 4 at halftime. This was not like, they were blowing them out and it went from bad to worse. It was a game at halftime. They were losing at halftime. Then they were up 26 points immediately in the second half before Davis got off the mat. Ridiculous. And to see those things back to back, JJ, you're working some kind of magic over there, brother. Keep it going, because it's entertaining.
So you guys saw the fallout from the Indiana court storming, right? Indiana beats Wisconsin for the first time in 10 years. They stormed the court, and everybody's like, hey, remember? You're Indiana. You're not supposed to do that.
Yeah, not really.
Yeah, I mean, you're not supposed to do that, sort of, but if you're a college student, you're supposed to do dumb fun stuff, right?
That's true.
Is there anything that's more dumb fun than storming? Two people who've experienced, JJ, is there anything that's more dumb fun than storming a college basketball court?
No doubt, we did that, but we also went to Long Beach State, which doesn't exactly have the same prestige and history as IU. I mean, at the IU freshman orientation, aren't they like letting you know about Bobby Knight and the great basketball traditions? Shouldn't you already know that? Shouldn't you know that going in? I'm a fan of court storming in general. I think people overreact when they're like, "Oh, what are you storming the court for?" But when you're Indiana, you can't do that. That's like the Yankees celebrating a divisional title. Or the Lakers celebrating a West title.
See, but again,
it's like that. That's what you do.
But again, those are athletes or franchises that would have like a rational decision about this. This is like, let's go to this party right now. You really don't know how many of those kids are aware of the full depth of that prestige. A lot of them maybe just go because their friends all go, or they're in a fraternity or whatever.
Well, you know who should know is the cheerleaders. The cheerleaders should be aware, and I want you to go back and look at the tape. As that buzzer goes off, the first group to storm the court, get to the middle, and start jumping up and down are the cheerleaders. In my book, unacceptable.
Unacceptable. So the cheerleaders sort of started the court storming?
It makes it so unnatural. It really looks awkward.
Well,
because
the kids is like...
Because the students aren't storming the court.
Right.
The cheerleaders get out there, and then the students kind of look at each other and like, oh, maybe we should follow them. Because that's what they're cheerleading.
Right, that's a little different. Because then it almost is like the athletic department ordered a court storming or something. That's kind of strange.
Rub me the wrong way.
Hashtag we overreact.
Should.
Well, hello. As we've mentioned before, every time we've got to play worthy of it, we are going to do a Gazette's Baby reenactment of a great sports highlight from Long Beach last week. We had a really good play in the Long Beach State UC Irvine game. You may remember it from JJ's video. And obviously that's a rivalry that always has transition buckets, and we're going to give you our favorite one from that game right now. We lost a great friend of the program last week, Dr. Dan Barber, sports writer. You guys may have seen the obituary that we put up, but longtime Gazette's columnist, wrote for the Gazettes for almost a decade, and then actually right as JJ and I were coming to the Gazettes, moved over to the Long Beach Post, where he'd been writing for the last 3 years. Really a tough loss, I'd say, for the whole Long Beach State family and for the larger Long Beach sports community as well, but that was a guy that we'd gotten to know very well, so we were really sad to see him go. Almost 70 years old, but still unexpected. We actually all saw him at the basketball game on Thursday and Saturday, just before he passed away on Monday. So really sad news there, and obviously sending condolences to his family in Florida, who are very shaken up and upset.
It was difficult to go to a Long Beach State game and not see Dr. Dan. Not the opposite way, the other way around.
For
sure. I think the first thing I thought of, Mike, when we heard about the news was that when we first started this job, and actually it's a funny roundabout way, we started working at the Post when we graduated from college, and we were doing this show. We originally called it Sports Night. It was a podcast that we did while we were at Long Beach State.
In college, yeah.
And then we weren't really working for anybody, but we continued to do the podcast because it was something that we could do for local sports.
Well, it was a thing for us to do creatively that made us feel like we weren't like living in a living hell with the miserable jobs that we had after we got out of college.
Exactly. And the first person to become a consistent listener and the first person to say our funny lines back to us while we weren't recording or listening to the show was Dr. Dan Barber. He was the first official GFOP, and I will always remember that he wasn't doing it because he wanted to be competitive and compete with us as professionals. He wasn't doing it because he wanted to know more than us about Long Beach sports. It was just that he loved Long Beach sports so much, saw that there was actually an avenue to enjoy it, and then went after it with the, dedication that he went after everything with, which was, almost second to none.
Just on a personal level, similar to that, when we first started at the Post, which feels like a lot longer ago than 5 years, I would say, you and I had sort of jokes about how we weren't making any money in our bio, and I had in mind, my wife and I are both loving what we do because that's the only payment we're getting, something like that, And Dan basically just cold called me. I mean, I don't even know where he got my phone number from, and offered my wife and I $10 an hour to come over and organize his files. He wrote a number of books on grant writing, and was very successful at that. He was a professor at Long Beach State. Hi, Vinny. But he basically just offered us 40 hours of work at $10 an hour because he read a joke that said we didn't have enough money. And I'll never forget that. I mean, that was such a big-hearted thing to do. And we were making enough money that we didn't necessarily need it, you know what I mean? But it was that he thought that much of it, and he didn't even hesitate. I never forgot that about him.
Make sure you read the obituary written by Mike at the GazetteSports.com website, and funeral arrangements are forthcoming. Rest in peace, Dan Barber. All, there ain't no more. Another episode of Long Beach Sports Talk in the books. We've got a huge weekend. We already mentioned the boys soccer game on Friday, Long Beach State women's basketball on Saturday, the men on a huge road trip up the 101, and of course, early next week, we've got some more very important boys and girls basketball and girls soccer. Long Beach Sports covered right here. For everybody involved with the Press Telegram and the Gazette newspapers and this show, for Mike, for Vincent, for Tyler, for JJ, for everybody else we're going to see in the stands this weekend.
Well stated, Mike.
Take care, y'all. Peace. So can we not talk about A-Rod on this podcast?
Yep.